The coach added something to the best player's drink to test the team. It started the moment everyone noticed Ryan wasn't moving right. This was the same guy who usually owned the field without trying. Warm-ups barely touched him. He ran clean, sharp, always a step ahead. Ryan had been the face of the team for 3 years. The rest of the players said they respected him, but Coach Miller had learned to read past smiles. He had seen side glances during drills. Heard jokes stop when Ryan walked by. Watched guys relax only after he left the locker room. So that morning, before practice, Coach Miller made a choice he still thinks about. He had poured a mild muscle relaxant into Ryan's drink. Nothing dangerous. Nothing illegal. Something that would slow reaction time just enough to look like fatigue. His goal wasn't to hurt Ryan. He wanted to see the truth. He wanted to know who this team really was when their star wasn't untouchable. Ryan drank it without thinking. He trusted his coach. By the first 20 minutes of practice, the change was clear. His timing was off. His steps were late. He tried to push through, but his body wouldn't respond the way it always did. Coach Miller watched the rest of the team instead of him. That's when the problem showed itself. Instead of covering for Ryan, guys stopped passing to him. Instead of encouraging him, they avoided eye contact. A few players smirked when he stumbled. One defender went in harder than usual during a drill, knowing Ryan wouldn't react fast enough. For months, he had sensed something wrong. Ryan trained harder than anyone. He stayed late. Helped younger players. Never complained. But success has a way of isolating people, especially in team sports. The more attention Ryan got, the quieter the locker room became around him. Practice ended early that day. Coach Miller called it off, saying they looked unfocused. Ryan walked off last, shoulders low, confused. He didn't look angry. He looked embarrassed. Coach Miller didn't say anything to him. Not yet. That afternoon, word spread fast. Teammates talked. Some said Ryan was slipping. Others joked that pressure was finally catching up to him. One player posted a vague comment online about stars burning out. Nothing directly named Ryan, but everyone knew. Coach Miller read it and shut his phone off. The next day was worse. Ryan showed up early, trying to fix what he thought was his fault. He stretched longer. Ran extra laps. The substance was still in his system, weaker but noticeable. His movements improved a bit but not enough to erase yesterday. This time, the team didn't hide it. Passes skipped him. Instructions went around him. During a scrimmage, he was left unmarked, as if he wasn't a threat anymore. That hurt more than being double-teamed ever had. Coach Miller stood with his arms crossed, watching something ugly come into focus. These players had been waiting. Waiting for Ryan to stumble. Waiting for proof they could move on without him. Waiting for an excuse to stop pretending everything was fine. What surprised Coach Miller wasn't the behavior. It was how fast it happened. By the end of practice, Ryan sat alone on the bench, staring at his cleats. No one checked on him. Not even the guys he had trained with since freshman year. That night, Coach Miller barely slept. He replayed the season in his head. The wins. The interviews. The way cameras always found Ryan. He remembered conversations with assistant coaches about locker room chemistry. He had brushed them off, thinking winning would smooth things out. Winning had done the opposite. The next week, Coach Miller kept the test going, carefully. Small doses. Just enough to keep Ryan slightly off. He told himself it was necessary. He needed the full picture before making any decisions. The picture got darker. Ryan's minutes dropped. Not officially but naturally. Teammates played around him. During games, they took shots Ryan usually took. Missed them. Then blamed spacing. Blamed communication. Never themselves. Fans noticed. Comment sections filled up. Some defended Ryan. Others turned quickly. People always do. Ryan stopped checking his phone. He showed up, trained, went home. The confidence that once filled his body was gone. He didn't complain to Coach Miller. He assumed this was part of sports. A rough patch. Something to grind through. That made it worse. Coach Miller expected anger. He expected questions. What he saw instead was a kid trying not to be a problem. That's when guilt started to creep in. But before Coach Miller could end the test, something else happened. A magazine editor reached out to Ryan directly. It was one of the biggest sports magazines in the country. They were planning a World Cup feature. Rising stars. Faces of the future. Ryan was on the shortlist for the cover. Ryan didn't tell Coach Miller. He didn't even tell his parents. He read the email 3 times, unsure if it was real. Then he closed his laptop and went to bed. Part of him felt proud. Another part felt like a fraud. How could he be the future when he couldn't even keep his spot on his own team? The teammates knew. One of them had connections. Another had seen the email preview on Ryan's phone by accident. The news spread quietly, not with excitement, but with tension. Now everything made sense to them. Ryan wasn't just the best player. He was leaving them behind. That offer turned small resentment into something sharper. At the next game, things crossed a line. Ryan was open twice in the first half. Both times, the ball went elsewhere. Both times, the shots missed. When Ryan tried to press, a teammate waved him off, annoyed. Coach Miller felt heat rise in his chest. In the locker room at halftime, the energy was wrong. Too calm for a tied game. Too comfortable with mistakes. Ryan sat at the end, quiet. His jersey was clean. That told the whole story. Coach Miller finally spoke, keeping his voice steady. He talked about effort, about awareness, about trust. No names. No shouting. Eyes dropped. Ryan nodded like he always did. In the second half, Coach Miller made a decision. He benched Ryan. The reaction was immediate. Not shock. Not confusion. Relief. Afterward, reporters asked about the benching. Coach Miller said it was tactical. Ryan stood behind him, silent. That night, Ryan sat in his car for a long time before driving home. He replayed the season like Coach Miller had, but from a different angle. He thought about how conversations changed when he walked in. How jokes stopped. How wins felt less shared than before. He wondered if he had done something wrong without realizing it. Coach Miller sat in his office, staring at the roster board. The test had gone too far. He had his answer, but it came with a cost. The team didn't rally around weakness. They exploited it. And Ryan had no idea why his world was falling apart. Coach Miller reached for his phone, then stopped. He wasn't ready yet. There was still something he didn't understand. Why had the teammates turned so fully? The answer was already there, hiding in that magazine email. And Coach Miller didn't know about it yet. Coach Miller found out about the magazine offer by accident. An assistant coach mentioned it casually while reviewing scouting notes. He said Ryan's name and laughed, surprised, like it was old news. Coach Miller didn't laugh. He asked where that came from. The assistant shrugged and said a couple of players were talking about it earlier in the week. World Cup feature. Possible cover. Big deal stuff. Coach Miller felt his chest tighten. Ryan hadn't said a word. That detail mattered more than the offer itself. Most players would have used that email like armor. It would have been shared, hinted at, celebrated. Ryan kept showing up quietly, taking hits from his own team, while carrying something that big alone. Coach Miller finally understood the shift in the locker room. It wasn't just jealousy. It was fear of being left behind. Fear wrapped in jokes and careless passes. Fear disguised as teamwork. And Coach Miller had poured fuel on it. He ended the test immediately. No more substance. No more watching. The damage was already done. The next practice, Ryan looked better physically. His movements came back. His timing returned. But the team didn't adjust. They had already written a different story in their heads. Coach Miller watched one defender avoid passing to Ryan even when there was no pressure. Another player took a rushed shot instead of resetting play. These weren't mistakes. These were choices. After practice, Coach Miller asked Ryan to stay behind. Ryan looked nervous, like he was about to be told he was done. Coach Miller didn't start with explanations. He asked one question instead. He asked if Ryan trusted him. Ryan nodded. That was all. Coach Miller told him everything. Not in dramatic terms. No justifying. No excuses. He explained the test. The reason. What he wanted to learn. And what he learned instead. Ryan listened without interrupting. His face didn't change much. But his shoulders dropped as the minutes passed, like something heavy was finally being set down. When Coach Miller finished, he apologized. Not as a coach. As a person. Ryan didn't react right away. He sat there quiet, staring at the floor. He wasn't angry. He wasn't relieved. He looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sports. Then he said something simple. He said he had felt crazy the last few weeks. Like he was losing his grip for no clear reason. Hearing the truth didn't make it okay, but it made sense. Coach Miller asked about the magazine. Ryan looked surprised. He admitted it. He said he didn't tell anyone because it didn't feel real. And because he didn't want things to get worse. Coach Miller leaned back and rubbed his face. Everything clicked. The players had known. Ryan hadn't used it. Hadn't tried to act bigger. Hadn't played above the team. And still, they turned on him. Coach Miller made a decision that night. The next day, he called a full team meeting. No drills. No conditioning. Everyone sat. Coach Miller didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten anyone's spot. He laid everything out. The behavior he saw. The passes not made. The moments that didn't match the values they claimed to have. Faces shifted. Some players stared ahead. Others looked down. A few looked angry, but not defensive. More exposed than anything. Coach Miller told them about the magazine offer. That changed the room. Not because of pride. Because of shame. They realized Ryan had carried success quietly while they resented him loudly. They saw how small their actions looked when put next to his silence. Coach Miller made it clear this wasn't about punishment. It was about reality. A team that eats its best player when he struggles isn't a team. It's a group waiting for someone to fall. He ended the meeting by saying one thing. The season would move forward with or without trust. That part was up to them. Practice resumed that afternoon. Something was different. The passes came back. Not perfectly. Not magically. But intentionally. Players checked on Ryan after plays. Someone patted his back after a missed shot. Small things but real. Ryan didn't act different. He didn't demand anything. He just played. The next game, Ryan scored early. Not because the team forced it to him. Because the moment was right. The crowd reacted the way crowds always do. But proud. Forgetful. But on the bench, Coach Miller watched the players, not the score. When Ryan subbed out late in the game, 2 teammates stood up to make room for him. That hadn't happened in weeks. The magazine shoot happened a month later. Ryan still didn't tell the team beforehand. They found out when the article dropped. His face on the cover. His name tied to the future. This time, the reaction was different. It wasn't perfect. Some guys still felt that sting. That doesn't disappear overnight. But they didn't turn away. They didn't isolate him. They shared it. Coach Miller never told anyone outside that room about the test. He knew he crossed a line. He accepted that. What mattered was what came after. Ryan finished the season strong. He didn't carry the team alone. He didn't have to. When scouts came, they talked about skill. They talked about composure. They talked about how he handled pressure. What they didn't see was the weeks he spent doubting himself because the people around him went quiet. That part stayed between him and Coach Miller. Years later, Ryan would say that season taught him more than any trophy ever could. It showed him how quickly things change when success enters a room. And how important it is to stay steady when others don't. Coach Miller would say something else. He'd say leadership isn't tested when everything works. It's tested when someone stumbles. And if the room turns cold, that's the truth you can't ignore. The team never forgot that season. Not because of the wins. Because of what they almost lost. Like, comment and subscribe for more stories.